We're going to start off doing a song written by Mike Scott. And it's about radical hospitality. It's called Bring 'Em All In. Feel free to sing along. It's sort of a mantra chant once you get going. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring the little fishes, bring the sharks, bring them from the brightness, bring them from the dark. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em from the caverns, bring 'em from the heights, bring 'em from the shadows, stand 'em in the light. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em out of Purda, bring 'em out of store, bring 'em out of hiding, lay 'em at my door. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em all in, 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 bring 'em all in into my heart. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring the unforgiven, bring the unredeemed, bring the lost, the nameless. Let 'em all be seen. Bring 'em out of exile, bring 'em out of sleep, bring 'em to the portal, lay 'em at my feet. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all into my heart. Bring 'em all in, 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 bring 'em all, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all in, bring 'em all, bring 'em all in, 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 bring 'em all, bring 'em all in, 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 bring 'em all into my heart.
Don't leave your broken heart at the door.
Bring it to the altar of life.
Don't leave your anger behind.
It has high standards, and the world needs vision.
Bring them with you.
and your joy and your passion
Bring your loving.
and your courage and your conviction
Bring your need for healing.
and your powers to heal.
There's work to do.
And all that we need to do it is right here in this room. Come. Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving, it doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you have broken your vow 1,000 times. Come, yet again, come, come.
We're called to action by the Spirit. So I invite you to stand up, let the Spirit move you, sing together. When the Spirit says do. If you feel like clapping, if you feel like dancing, it's permitted and encouraged.
On 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, Lord.
Got to do
When the Spirit says do.
stand. You got to stand.
Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do.
You got to stand.
You gotta stand when the Spirit says stand. You gotta stand when the Spirit says stand. When the Spirit says stand, you gotta stand, oh Lord. You gotta stand when the Spirit says stand. 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 Spirit says stand.
You got to love.
You gotta
Love when the Spirit says love.
You gotta love when the Spirit says love. When the Spirit says love, you gotta love, oh Lord. You gotta love when the Spirit says love. 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 Spirit says love.
You got to speak.
You gotta speak when the Spirit says speak. You gotta speak when the Spirit says speak. When the Spirit says speak, you gotta speak, oh Lord. You gotta speak when the Spirit says speak. Yeah. Spirit says speak. 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 Spirit says speak.
You got to do.
You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do, oh Lord. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. Yeah. Spirit says do. Spirit says do. Spirit says do. Spirit says do.
All right. Go band. Good evening, friends. Welcome to this very special evening, the second part of our kickoff at First Unitarian for a year of learning and action on our country's immigration crisis. It'll be a night with some singing, some seriousness, and some celebration. We began our kickoff last week with a sermon by the Reverend Diane Daugert, who told us what she sees from her perspective as a resident and a Unitarian Universalist minister in Tucson. And she told us about being afraid to go into the hills that touch her backyard. Diane has often seen signs of immigrants passing through there, cast-off clothing, cans, and bottles. But it isn't the ones who are making it through that she's afraid of. She said, it's the ones who don't make it, the ones whose bodies are found. And she has reason to worry. The Border Patrol has recovered over 5,000 bodies in the Tucson sector alone in the last decade. She told us of her congregation's decision to join No Más Muertes, No More Deaths, putting themselves at risk by going out into the desert with water. And she encouraged us to find out how we can be effective advocates in our community. And that's just what we're going to do. Tonight we have the honor of welcoming Unitarian Universalist Association President Peter Morales to our pulpit. He will tell us what's happening among UUs at the denominational level. We are also pleased to welcome Javier Martinez, the Associate Director for the Partnership for Community Action here in Albuquerque. Mr. Martinez will tell us about what's going on locally and share some thoughts about how a congregation like ours can make a difference. And finally, I'll tell you about some upcoming events as well as some opportunities to take up leadership at First Unitarian during this year of learning and action. I hope you'll join us for a reception afterward across the courtyard in the social hall. I'm glad you are here. There's a lot of learning and a lot of work to do, but also many new friends to meet, celebrations to share, and opportunities for deepening in faith, mission, and meaning. And all that we need to do it is here in this room.
Yoseline pulled her two jackets closer in the cold. She was wearing everything she had brought with her from home. Underneath the jackets, she had on a tank top, better suited to Arizona's searing summers than its chilly winters, and she'd pulled a pair of sweatpants over her jeans. Her clothes betrayed her girly tastes. One jacket was lined in pink. Her sneakers were a wild, bright green, a totally cool pair of shoes that were turning out to be not even close to adequate for the difficult path she was walking. A little white beaded bracelet circled her wrist. Best of all were her sweats, a pair of butt pants with the word Hollywood emblazoned on the rear. Yoseline planned to have them on when she arrived in the land of movie stars. She tried to pay attention to the twists and turns in the footpath, to obey the guide, to keep up with the group. But by the time they got to Cedar Canyon, she was lagging. She was beginning to feel sick. She'd been on the road for weeks and out in the open for days, sleeping on the damp ground. Maybe she'd skimped on drinking water, giving what she had to her little brother. Maybe she'd swallowed some of the slimy green water that pools in the cow ponds dotting this ranch country. Whatever the reason, Yoseline started vomiting. She crouched down and emptied her belly, retching again and again, then lay back on the ground. Resting didn't help. She was too weak to stand up, let alone hike this roller coaster trail out to the road. It was a problem. The group was on a strict schedule. They had that ride to catch, and the longer they lingered here, the more likely they'd be caught. The coyote made a decision, and this was the one he made. He would leave the young girl behind, alone in the desert. He told her not to worry. They were in a remote canyon that was little traveled, but the Border Patrol would soon find her. Nearby, he claimed, were some pistas, platforms that La Migra used as landing pads for their helicopters. Surely they'd be by soon, and they would take care of her. Her little brother cried and begged to stay with her, but Yoselin was his big sister, and Yoselin insisted that he go. As he recounted later, she told him, "You have to keep going and get to Mama."
It's a little-known fact that there were a lot of immigrants who were killed in the attack on the World Trade Center who were not memorialized because their families were afraid to mention that they had died. This is a song about that incident.
Mi esposo, my wife, worked on the 80th floor. The company had hired illegals before. She got the job by word of mouth. That's the way in the north when you're from the south. They say 3,000, but the counting's not done. Mi esposa está muerta. 3001. I have no papers, I have no rights. All my days end in sleepless nights, missing you silently. If I give your name, will they come after me? Mi hermano, my brother, the elevator man, the doctor in our country, but you take what you can. I saw the photos in Union Square, but I could not leave his picture there. They say 3,000, but that's not true. Mi hermano no fuera 3,002. No rights, all my days end in sleepless nights, missing you silently. If I give your name, will they come after me? When early that day, she had always been that way. Her daughter asks, where did she go? How to tell her, I don't know. They say 3,000, but that can't be. Perdía mi hija, 3003. I tried to find you when I heard they gave some ashes to families, but I'll only have the ones I breathe. They say 3,000, but there's so many more. They say aparecidos 3,004. I have no papers, I have no rights. All my days end in sleepless nights, missing you silently. If they give your name, I have no papers, I have no rights. All my days end in sleepless nights, missing you silently. If I give your name,
Mi esposa, my
will
wife,
they come after me? Mi hermano, my brother.
will they come after me? Mi hija, my
Will
daughter,
they come after me? Mi padre, my father. If I give your name, will they come after me?
The Reverend Peter Morales was elected to the Unitarian Universalist Association presidency in June 2009 on a platform with three main priorities: public witness and social justice, new ministry for a multicultural age, and growth. President Morales is the first Latino president of the UUA. He grew up in San Antonio, Texas, and learned to speak Spanish before he spoke English, and he is especially passionate about immigration reform. So much so that he was arrested in Phoenix, Arizona last year for civil disobedience related to the protest of Arizona's anti-immigrant bill, SB 1070. I understand he has a trial coming up for that. Before being called to ministry, President Morales was a Fulbright lecturer in Spain, a newspaper editor and publisher in Oregon, a Knight International Press Fellow in Peru, and a regional manager in California state government. He attended the Starr King School for the Ministry in Berkeley, California. Please join me in welcoming the Reverend Peter Morales.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. And thank you for the marvelous work that you've undertaken here. This is a real gift, not only here in Albuquerque, but will be in our larger movement, because what you're doing here is going to be a resource for many others. As was just mentioned, last July, after a lifetime of being a model law-abiding citizen, kind of boringly so, I might add, I was arrested and thrown in jail. I was arrested along with others for blocking the entrance to the Maricopa County Jail in Phoenix. And arrested with me that day were dozens of fellow Unitarian Universalist ministers and local activists. And I just got a trial date for this July. I joined others in blocking the jail to prevent one of Sheriff Joe Arpaio's infamous sweeps. In the sweeps, his officers enter Latino neighborhoods and pick up people they suspect are here illegally. Arpaio had announced he was going to conduct a sweep that July day, despite the fact that a federal judge had just ruled that major portions of Arizona's SB 1070 was illegal. including the kind of profiling that his department clearly uses. And incidentally, I have to ask here, why is our Justice Department looking the other way while these outrageous violations of civil rights go on? The people whose responsibility it is to defend our civil rights are failing to do their job. And before I go on, I want to acknowledge that immigration is a complex issue. Good people disagree about policy alternatives for immigration reform. I didn't get arrested in order to promote any particular policy agenda. I was resisting flagrant violations of civil and human rights. I got arrested to call attention to the shameful and inhuman way we are treating our fellow human beings. And I was proud to stand, along with so many others, on the side of love, of compassion, of human dignity and justice. Immigration is one of the great moral issues of our time. I believe it ranks with the civil rights movement of 50 years ago, and even with the question of slavery as a defining issue of an era. And once again, the soul of America is at stake. The question before us is how we shall treat people who are poor, powerless, and different. The anti-immigrant laws passed in Arizona and the outrageous behavior of law enforcement are only symptoms of a much larger problem. This isn't really about Arizona, and ultimately it isn't even really about immigration. It's good to be back in the arid Southwest. But I'll need a few sips to get me through. Ultimately, the issue before us is moral and spiritual. It goes to the core of what it means to be human, about what we hold sacred and the values that shape our lives. You and I are relational creatures. In a profound sense, we are our relationships. All of the great religious traditions are consistent on this point. We need one another. We become fully human in loving relationships with one another. We're all connected to one another. All of the great religions teach us that when we learn to love, when we learn to let our petty egos and selfish desires go, and when we can leave those behind, only then will we attain true freedom and true salvation. And whether we deny it or not, hatred, violence, marginalization, and dehumanization of others affects us. In fact, I saw this very clearly after I was arrested. The officers of the sheriff's department and the people working in the jail in Maricopa County have lost a precious part of themselves. They've become cold, numb, unfeeling, hard, and mean. The repeated mistreatment of others has sucked something out of them. And there's one way, though, which immigration is unlike the other great moral issues, because immigration is not well understood. In an important sense, as I said, it isn't really about immigration at all. So this evening, I would have us see immigration in a broader context, a context of history, of international economic policy, and of core religious values. And let's begin by understanding who these immigrants are, especially coming across the southern border, and why they are coming now in such great numbers. And let's begin in Chiapas, Mexico. As you drive across the hilly countryside of Chiapas, you see patches of corn everywhere. These corn patches, or milpas, look nothing like the vast ocean of hybridized, fertilized, industrialized, and subsidized corn that stretches from Nebraska to New York State. In Chiapas, the corn plants are planted further apart than we're used to seeing, and it's mixed with beans and squash in an ancient combination that is sustainable and produces a diet with all of the essential amino acids. The corn is tended by hand, and these little plots are worked by individual families. Chiapas is Mexico's most southern state, bordering Guatemala. And like Guatemala, this is the ancient land of the Mayan civilization. Impressive Mayan ruins dot the landscape and draw tourists. And the descendants of that civilization live today in abject poverty. Their children are malnourished, they're on the margins of society. They live today, as they have sadly for 500 years, under an oppressive regime that denies their basic human rights. I traveled to Chiapas 4 years ago as part of a delegation sponsored by the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, the UUSC, as some of you know it. And we met with people from different nonprofit organizations and met with and actually stayed at centers that Zapatista rebels had, these rebels struggling with limited success against centuries of oppression. But among the things that we learned and could see was that the industrial corn in Iowa and the native corn in the milpas are now intimately connected. With the advent of NAFTA, American corn is changing the Mexican economy. The corn tortilla, the staple of the Mexican diet, especially among the poor, is now typically made with American corn. And as corn prices rose when corn was used as a source of, and is being used as a source of ethanol to fuel American cars, children in Chiapas go hungry. So a little known part of the NAFTA agreements is that they required Mexico to change its laws before they could enter into these agreements, laws that allowed the existence of ejidos, large areas of land that had been owned communally for generations, for centuries really. The moneyed classes and corporations can now buy up land that was long owned by peasant families. The richest man in the world today is a Mexican, Carlos Slim. Interesting name. He's worth more than Bill Gates or Warren Buffett. And this exists in a country where millions of children have insufficient food, no health care, and a woeful educational system. It's an old story. It happened in Europe hundreds of years ago, driving Europeans off the land, and in many cases, driving them to migrate to America. And it happened in America as corporate farming drove and continues to drive families off the land. So Chiapas is now a leading exporter of people. Thousands upon thousands of economic refugees are fleeing Chiapas and Oaxaca and other places, and from Central America as well. In fact, many from Central America cross Chiapas on their way north. They head for jobs at luxurious beach resorts filled with Americans and Europeans, or they head for the slums of Mexico City, and some of the most adventurous risk-takers head for La Frontera, for the militarized border that tries to separate desperate Mexicanos from jobs in America. As you heard, hundreds died trying to cross the desert. Last year, in Arizona's Sonoran Desert, 252, an all-time record, died trying to make it. I was there, in fact, visited Diane Daugert, who I hear was here good colleague who was here a couple of weeks ago, and members of her congregation. And we went down to Nogales, and I visited, along with others, migrants in the border town there. And there had been people who'd been captured trying to cross the desert and had been returned to the Mexican border. One thing struck me and haunts me. Not a single one of these people that I talked to, not one spoke of coming to America to have a better life for him or herself. There was simply no personal ambition among them. They risk crossing the desert, and each one of them knows that hundreds die each year. It's not that they're unaware of the risks. They do it for their families. They're risking their lives to feed children or to send money home to wives, children, and parents living in squalid poverty in Mexico. Some are risking their lives to rejoin families that are here in the United States. They've gone down, like one, to visit a dying grandfather. And once getting there, realized they had to try to get back, and it was much more difficult than it had been 10 years ago. We Americans who are so driven by an ideology of personal success have difficulty understanding that personal ambition is utterly absent from these migrants. No sane person, no sane, ambitious person would attempt to cross that desert today. Southern Arizona is like a war zone, swarming with thousands of law enforcement officials using high-tech equipment. The desert and the ICE can deter people whose motivations are personal greed. But there's no stopping a father trying to feed his family, or a mother who's trying to rejoin her children, because they would rather die than stop trying. And many of them will die. And people who are already here illegally live in fear. Children don't know when their mother or father will be taken away. My wife, Phyllis, is a bilingual special education teacher, and she sees the emotional distress that this causes children all the time. She teaches in Colorado, in the Denver area. Breaking up families who've been here for years is cruel, and it's madness. It serves no one's interests. Most Americans feel that we are somehow passive victims of an invasion coming from the South. But the truth is very different. Our economic policies that disproportionately benefit the wealthy, are helping to create wrenching economic dislocations in Mexico, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. Many of the people trying to sneak into the United States were pushed out of their homes by American policies. And I want us to take a moment to get a historical perspective also on the current situation, because this is almost always missing in the discussions. I want us to look at some major demographic events of the past 500 years. First, we have to remember that the arrival of Europeans to this continent started a horrific pandemic across the Americas. It was worse than the plague in Europe and 1,000 times worse than AIDS. Native Americans had no resistance to European diseases like smallpox. Entire populations were wiped out. That's why it was so easy for Europeans to move west across North America, because the Native American population had largely died off. When Europeans moved west across the continent, the Native American population was only a tiny fraction of what it had been in 1491. Another major demographic move, of course, was the importation of African slaves. Slavery became the basis of an economy producing cotton and tobacco for an international market. The legacy of slavery, racism, and oppression still casts, of course, a huge shadow on America. 170 years ago, the slave-based economy of huge populations growing commodities for export continued its westward expansion across the South. But it hit a border. It hit a border. What is now southeast Texas is excellent land for growing cotton. The trouble was that it was part of Mexico. But the border was porous, though, and undocumented Anglos poured across, bringing their slaves. But there was another problem. Slavery was illegal in Mexico. So the Anglo immigrants soon fomented a rebellion aimed at making slavery legal. This isn't radical left-wing historiography. I mean, you can read it on the University of Texas website. This is pretty standard academic historiography, although it's not what I was taught in the elementary schools of San Antonio growing up. Later, the Mexican War of the 1840s had the effect of the United States annexing much of what was northern Mexico, including much of this state, Arizona and California. My point is, we need to see the present situation in this context. The border that we now have between the United States and Mexico was essentially created to make space for slavery. The fences and the guard towers we are building along that border are trying to keep Mexicans essentially from re-entering land that was taken from them. And of course, the Mexican elite, mostly of European descent, were not exactly blameless. The land undocumented Americans stole from them was land they had previously stolen from Native Americans. My point is, we can't pretend as a country, as a culture, that we had nothing to do with the creation of this problem. And so I ask you today, who has a moral right to be here? It's easy to determine who has a legal right, but what about a moral right? Why is it all right if a wealthy family from New York retires to New Mexico, but it's not all right if a poor family from Chiapas comes here seeking work? And here I must speak about the issue, because I hear this all the time, about some people being legal and others being illegal. Because as a religious and ethical people who affirm human compassion and who advocate for human rights and who seek justice, we must never make the mistake of confusing a legal right with a moral right. Let me say that again. We should never confuse a legal right with a moral right. The forced removal of Native Americans from their land on the reservations was legal. The importation and sale of African slaves was legal. Later in my own lifetime, we had laws across the South designed to prevent African American citizens from voting. Apartheid was legal in South Africa. The confiscation of the property of Jews at the beginning of the Nazi regime was legal. The Spanish Inquisition was legal. Crucifying Jesus was legal. The fact that something is legal doesn't cut any moral ice. And that's largely because the powerful have always used the legal system to oppress the powerless. Now, yes, as citizens, I believe that we should respect the rule of law. But more importantly, our duty is to create laws that are founded on our highest sense of justice, equity, and compassion. So we have some fundamental choices before us. There are loud voices that urge us to choose fear, denial, reactionary nationalism, and racism. And we have to resist those, because that path will lead to division, hatred, violence, and death. And there's a better way. It is a way that's urged upon us by our Unitarian Universalist principles, those of us in here who are UUs, but by every major religious tradition. It's the path of compassion, of hope, and of human dignity. We don't need fences. The last thing we need today is more barriers to divide us. We need bridges. We need understanding and cooperation. What might we do? What might we create if we were guided by our highest aspirations? What might we do if we allowed ourselves to be guided by our sense of the inherent worth and dignity of every person? And what future might we build together if we were to create policies guided by our notions of justice and equity? I don't pretend to have all of the answers or to be a policy wonk on immigration and all of the related issues of economy, health care, education. But I know this: breaking up poor working families who've lived among us for years is not justice. Refusing minimal health services to young children doesn't feel like ways we should treat members of the human family. And deporting young adults who came here as toddlers isn't justice. And creating a huge fence complete with barbed wire across hundreds of miles of border does not build the world I want for my children. Change is coming. Change is here. Our future is multicultural and multiracial. We don't have to be afraid of that. Indeed, let us embrace the wondrous possibilities before us, and let us be guided by love and by hope. Ultimately, we're not engaged here in a political struggle, and it's not about public policy. It's a struggle for our nation's soul. It's a historic conflict between love and hate, between fear and hope, between a dying past and a future that can still be shaped into something that is wonderful. It's time to take a stand, to say no to hatred and fear, to stand on the side of love and hope. Si se puede. Thank you very much. Amen. And I invite you now, while the band, I'm told, will play quietly behind me, into a spirit of meditation, reflection, and prayer. And I would ask that the Spirit of love, that Holy Spirit that lives within us and among us, and only lives if it lives within us and among us, be with us now. We come together as a people divided, afraid, seeing fear lashing out, hatred, and violence. We ask, O Spirit, that you help us to open our hearts. Let us see, but more importantly, let us feel that we are brothers and sisters, hermanos y hermanas. And let us fear not, for fear is our great enemy. And we ask that that spirit of love, that it guide us, that this recognition that the other person is like me and I am like them, that we are intimately bound with one another and need one another to attain our full humanity. May that Spirit let us see new possibilities, wonderful possibilities. The possibility of building what Jesus called the kingdom of God, what Martin Luther King Jr. called the beloved community. And as we go and lead our lives in this community of ours, let us remember that everyone deserves respect, que todos merecen respeto, and that compassion, el amor, la compasión, es una guía que nunca falla, is a guide that will never fail us. And it reminds us that together we are strong. Together we keep the Spirit alive. And let us go filled with hope, stubborn determination, joy, and a deep peace. So may it be. Amen.
I invite you now to rise as you're able. Raise your voices in song. Join us in singing Keep On Moving Forward. And the lyrics are printed for you in the program. It's in English and Spanish, so you get a chance to practice your Spanish, a good tool for the future. Okay, so Diana's going to give us the, oh, I'm sorry. Diana's going to look at me while I sing the first. Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. All right, let's move. Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Vamos todos adelante. Siempre adelante. Siempre adelante, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on walking proudly, keep on walking proudly, keep on walking proudly, never turning back. Never turning back. Cantaremos en voz alta, siempre en voz alta, siempre en voz alta, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Never turning back. Never turning back.
Javier Martinez is the Associate Director of the Partnership for Community Action here in Albuquerque. The partnership is a nonprofit, community-based organization committed to building strong, healthy, and vibrant communities through relationship building, leadership development, and civic engagement. Using historically proven community organizing models, the partnership works with vulnerable children and families across central New Mexico, including many undocumented families, to achieve political and economic self-determination. At the core of their mission are access to quality education, living wage jobs, and healthy, organized communities. The partnership played a key role during this year's legislative session in defending access to higher education for all students, regardless of immigration status, and in protecting driver's licenses for all New Mexicans. Please join me in welcoming Javier Martinez.
Buenas noches, ¿cómo están todos? Good evening, thank you for this invitation. It's an honor to be here, and thank you, Reverend Morales, for your powerful words. The immigrant story, as you know, is one of struggle, pain, and oftentimes unimaginable suffering. However, the immigrant story is also one of courage. It is one of hope, and it is one of dreams. Allow me to share with you briefly my own immigrant story. I was brought to the United States as a child, fleeing the economic oppression that is common in almost all immigrant stories. My parents are not criminals. My parents are certainly not terrorists. My parents were visionaries, history makers in their own right. They brought my sister and me to the greatest country in the world, like millions of others, looking for a better future for their children. 22 years later, the son of an immigrant stands here before you. Some may call me an anchor baby. I'm actually okay with that. I kind of like that term. But don't call me a terrorist. Don't call me a criminal. And please do not call me an illegal. I recently graduated from law school and will be taking the bar exam in a few months. I also help run a nonprofit organization, oversee half a dozen employees, and day to day make a positive impact in my community. I am an American. I am not a terrorist. Why do I tell you all this? Well, because right-wing interest groups have demonized our people for far too long. Whether it's the Corrections Corporation of America demonizing us in order to profit from our incarceration in Arizona, or whether it's racist fringe groups who are terrified of the fact that the United States of America is no longer a homogeneous society, the fact of the matter is that immigrants have come to this land before it was the United States. It is because of these hundreds of years of immigration, both documented and undocumented immigration, that our country is and will continue to be a beacon of hope throughout the world. New Mexico is a perfect example of what a diverse community shaped by years of immigration looks like. We are a land where some of the greatest indigenous civilizations have thrived. We are a place where these same indigenous civilizations have coexisted with white Spaniards, Mestizo Mexicans, and Anglo-Americans for generations. The same land is now home to thousands of immigrants from all over the world: Mexico, Central and South America, Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. Our history is far from perfect, but we have learned to coexist and succeed together. New Mexico should be a model for the rest of the country. However, New Mexico is not immune to the hateful anti-immigrant sentiment that is sweeping our country. In an act of political and perhaps divine irony, the nation's first Latina governor has made it a central point of her governorship to end New Mexico's practice of granting driver's licenses to undocumented people. Keep in mind, the state is not simply granting licenses left and right to undocumented folks. In fact, they have to abide by every requirement that you and I have to, and actually more. In a 24-hour news cycle that values punditry and talking heads as opposed to facts and truth, our governor has made the ridiculous claim that undocumented immigrants are traveling to New Mexico by the masses from all over the world. Exactly. Thought it was funny too when I was writing it. She claims that there are hordes of people from all over the world coming to fraudulently attain our driver's license. She cites the threat of terrorism as a reason why New Mexico should stop this practice. The fact of the matter is that she knows better. Statistics from her own motor vehicle department do not support her claims. In fact, they contradict her. The documented cases of fraud in New Mexico are in the single digits. New Mexico's driver's license law has been in place since 2003. Since our uninsured motorist rate has decreased significantly from 21% in 2003 to 9% last year. In addition, undocumented licensed drivers have contributed over $17 million in licensing and registration fees. Also, because the requirement for a license is to have a federal taxpayer ID number, millions of dollars in state income taxes have been paid by these same undocumented immigrants. All of these benefits without even talking about perhaps the most important one, the public safety of each and every one of us. Each and every one of these 80,000 drivers must know the rules of the road before getting behind the wheel. Furthermore, every driver under the age of 25 must take a DWI prevention class. It is a fact, licensing our drivers makes our streets safer. During this year's legislative session, many of us made history. In fact, First Unitarian made history. In an unprecedented statewide collaborative effort, led by Somos un Pueblo Unido. We, you, the partnership, and many other groups under the leadership of Albuquerque Interfaith made history. Under the leadership of the Interfaith, over 250 local leaders made more than 500 trips to the state legislative session for immigrant rights. That, ladies and gentlemen, is unprecedented. In that process, we built a strong and collaborative relationship with other immigrant rights groups, but most importantly, with each other. This diverse group of people of all races, faiths, and yes, even immigration status, work together to protect the public safety and save licenses for all New Mexicans. Keep in mind, however, that driver's licenses are the tip of the iceberg. We will have a special legislative session in August to deal with redistricting, and the governor has already promised that she will bring up the licenses issue once again. In addition, she has promised to undo laws that grant access to undocumented students to our colleges and universities. Folks, we need to understand that this is only the beginning. If we don't act now, we will soon be battling Arizona-style anti-immigrant legislation. I invite you, in fact, I urge you to get involved. Your church is already very, very active. You have a great support system already here in place. We need each and every one of you to help save New Mexico from the forces of intolerance and the forces of hate. We are the land of opportunity and tolerance. We are the land of hope. We are New Mexico, and in the eyes of God, we are all His children. Gracias.
Thank you very much. So what's next here at First Unitarian? I want to call your attention to some events that are listed in your order of service, inside and on the back. There's a series of gatherings on immigration as a moral issue that begins meeting next Monday and continues for 10 weeks, alternating between discussion and speakers and field trips. Drop-ins are welcome. And by the end of the series, participants will come up with a plan of action of their own. There is a leadership training in public narrative on Saturday, May 7th. You're invited to come and explore your personal calling to help heal our broken immigration system and speak up with the people harmed by it, while learning also how to inspire others to join you in this important work. And then beginning in July, there's a reading and discussion group that will take up the book, The Death of Yoselin, the one that Diane Daugert mentioned and that we heard an excerpt from tonight. It's a very interesting journalistic look at immigration on the Arizona border. You won't be able to put it down, I promise. And it presents several viewpoints on our immigration system. These events get us off to a great start, but they're not all we're doing here at First Unitarian. Our goal is to build up our knowledge and our leadership capacity throughout the next 14 months, taking action first at the local level here in Albuquerque, and then at the state level in Santa Fe, and finally at the national level by turning out in huge numbers, I hope, at our denomination's 2012 General Assembly in Phoenix, Arizona. There, we will not be conducting business as usual, but will join thousands of other UUs in making an impact on this issue. So tonight is a call for your leadership. We need some leaders to help strategize. We need people to help First Unitarian get better connected with other organizations in the community, like the Partnership and Albuquerque Interfaith and others. We need people to investigate the possibility of field trips to the border, to coordinate events, to spread the word, and much, much more. So you'll find sign-up sheets near the doors and in the reception hall. If you want to get involved, and it can be in large or small ways for the whole year or for one event, put your name down so that we know to get in touch with you. And there's one more thing that will help. If you're able, we hope you'll consider an offering to support this work. Money collected will be used for advocacy projects and speakers, as well as scholarships to send youth on field trips to the border and to enable our fullest participation in that 2012 General Assembly in Phoenix. So you'll find some envelopes in the backs of the chairs. If you write a check, you can make it out to First Unitarian, and you can leave your offering in the baskets at the back of the sanctuary. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being a justice-loving community. Thank you on behalf of the people who are too afraid right now to speak up for themselves, who are counting on the moral voice of our country to finally make itself heard. We are that moral voice. You are, and I am, and congregations are, and all of the good people that are organizing themselves are. In a moment, the band will play a closing song for us, and we'll have a reception and a Q&A time in the social hall. For now, I offer you these words of benediction. Whether you're a member of this church, or a friend, or a first-time visitor tonight, go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering. And honor all beings. Blessed be. Amen.
Our closing song will celebrate the fact that we are already a multicultural nation. It's called City of Immigrants. Living in a city of immigrants, I don't need to go traveling. Open my door and the world walks in. Living in a city of immigrants. Living in a city that never sleeps. My heart keeping time to 1,000 beats. Singing in languages I don't speak. Living in a city of immigrants. City of brown. City of white. City of light. City of innocence. City of sweat. City of tears. City of prayers, city of immigrants. Living in a city where the dreams of men reach up to the sky, touch and then tumble back down to the earth again. Living in a city of immigrants. Living in a city where the streets are paved with good intentions and a people's faith in the sacred promise that's at you made. Living in a city of immigrants. City of stone, city of steel, a city of wheels, constantly turning, a city of bone, a city of skin, a city of pain, city of immigrants. everyone. Living in a city of immigrants. River flows out and the sea rolls in, washing away nearly all my sins. Living in a city of immigrants. City of brown, city of white, a city of light. I'm living in a city of immigrants, city of sweat, a city of tears, a city of prayers, a city of immigrants, a city of stone, a city of steel, a city of wheels, city of immigrants, a city of bone, a city of skin, a city of sweat, city of immigrants. All of us are 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 immigrants. Now, I invite you to join us for a reception in the social hall.
Go in peace.